说到联合国高级官员，你脑海中首先想到的是什么？是在镜头和聚光灯面前的机敏睿智，
Let young people strive.
还是在各种多边外交场合的成熟老练？或者是穿梭于冲突热点地区的从容不迫？我们今天要认识的这位，他的画风可能有些不同。他时常带着大男孩一般的笑容，无论走到哪里都跟年轻人打成一片，活力和激情更是他的个性标签。他就是联合国首任主管青年事务的助理秘书长费利佩·保利埃。Assistant Secretary General Paulier, welcome to our show. It's a great pleasure to have you with us.
It's my pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. So probably first I want to start with the picture on the big screen, and you are in the center. Everybody seems to be so happy, and you seem to be like a family, like a team together. Do you still remember what happened at that moment?
Yes, it was a very nice meeting with different youth delegates that came as part of the All China Youth Federation delegation. Most of them were Chinese youth delegates, but some of them were from different programs that All China Youth Federation is supporting through some of their initiatives, and they came from different regions of the world. And we had the chance during their participation in the action days of the Summit of the Future a few days ago. We had the chance to have some minutes together to listen about their vision, their priorities, and also to share a little bit of what we are trying to do here in the United Nations Youth Office.
Of course, we will come back to Action Days a little bit later because it was a very big moment. But firstly, we want to know you more. Just as our title on this picture said.
I don't understand Chinese, so you will need to explain what it says there.
It says from pediatrics to ASG of the UN.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
And I still think that to a lot of people, they would say that's a very remarkable career path. And I'm wondering your experience in the medical world, especially like the practice of taking care of children, has the help you to shape your visions and values towards the world and also your aspirations for working in the UN?
People that work in the UN, they're civil servants, international civil servants. They are serving the world in somehow at this organization and trying to serve the principles and the values of what the UN represents. This vocation, I think, has a lot in common from what I did before as a medical doctor. That's also about public service in somehow, Of course, so this transformation was not from one day into another one, It was a process. I remember when I first told my parents that I was about to stop practicing medicine. That was in 2020. When I started to work as the National Youth Director in Uruguay, and I was in that position for almost 3 years. At the same time, I believe that professional training marks you as a person, So I will always be a medical doctor in all what I do, All that has to do with health issues and how we really think about holistic in the well-being of young people, it's part of me, and I bring this also from my past experience as a medical doctor and as a pediatrician. But now I had a different focus, a different emphasis. I have to lead this recently established UN Youth Office. We have a clear vision, clear priorities, and we need to move forward. For me, it's kind of a dream also,
And also we know that in the Youth 2030 strategy, it has been very clearly defined that the UN will be working with and for the young people. So apart from the request of your mandate, do you think that is also what you are striving for a very long time?
I think so. And when I'm looking back, since I was 18 and since I started to study medicine, that I have always been involved at different levels and from different spaces in roles that really believe that young people can change things, and at the same time that engaging more meaningfully with young people is a vehicle to accelerate transformation and to bring positive changes in our society. And I think that if we compare where we are now at the global level, in the global discussion, in the way we are framing how we engage with young people, I think we have advanced a lot, and maybe some years back, this core mandate of the Youth 2030 strategy, this idea of working not only for young people, but working with young people, was more a desire and a dream. But I think that now it's more a reality.
I'd like to quote a sentence that from a recent interview published by Washington Post. You said, "My role is not about representing the youth voices because they are too diverse to be represented by one person." So I'm wondering, how would you understand and define your mandate and that of the UN Youth Office adapting to the realities of the world?
Mhm. So I think for me, that's like a philosophical way of understanding my role, So first of all, I was not elected for this position. So I'm not a youth representative in this role, But at the same time, I need to understand that my role and the UN Youth Office role is to create better structures for young people's participation, I really believe that young people are not to be represented, They are to participate, and they have the right to participate. It's 1.9 billion of young people between 10 and 24 years old. And if we look at those under 30, we are speaking about 50% of the world's population, There are common challenges across the world, in terms of climate issues, in terms of active conflicts and wars. The highest amount of conflicts active since the Second World War, when this organization was established. So if we really want to be an inclusive UN, we need to bring those voices on board, And it's very important that we understand that also these voices are extremely diverse, It's not the same to be young in China than to be young in Uruguay. And we need to understand this diversity. And actually, I think one of the most amazing things that my job has now in the United Nations as head of the United Nations Youth Office is the opportunity to meet amazing young leaders and to learn about how different countries, different organizations, different parts of the UN are trying to catalyze the way they are engaging with young people.
So I assume that since you taking your office, you have made a lot of field trips to different countries, different regions. Probably I want to highlight one of your trips. That was the trip to China.
For sure.
Just in August. Can you share some experience in China with us?
For sure. And thank you also for bringing it into the conversation. Actually, it was, so I had, during these last 11 months, I had many, many trips. But actually, the China trip was one of those that I really enjoyed it because I had time. So I was almost 8 days in China. I had the chance to visit two cities, Beijing and Chengdu. Of course, a lot of points in common, but at the same time, this represents the diversity of young people, even in one country. I love it. I had the chance to meet many, many different groups of young people, students, people involved in social projects. At the same time, my visit was during the World Youth Development Forum, an initiative of the Chinese government, coordinated by All China Youth Federation, that brought together in Beijing and in different cities of China hundreds of young delegates from different parts of the world to celebrate the International Youth Day and also to celebrate how young people are changing their societies. And I think this is a very clear effort and very clear opportunity in how we see also China in our UN Youth Office perspective. It's Chinese youth want to be part of global discussions. They want to be part of this space, And I think that China has a lot to bring into the global agenda. And when we look about the youth development, there's a lot to learn also from China. We are very clear that it's not really about what we can do alone. It's what we can do with the support of youth constituencies, with the support of governments, and with the support of the different parts of the UN system, I think we're making progress on the right direction. There's a lot to go yet. But at the same time, optimistic about recent things that happened a few days ago. No, I think that the Summit of the Future, the approval of the Pact for the Future and the Declaration on Future Generations and the Global Digital Compact are also symbols of an agenda that is still advancing and that it's putting young people in the center.
And finally, I think we could go to the Pact for the Future that you have mentioned. So on top of the Youth 2030, right now we have this pact. There's a whole chapter about youth and future generations. So I'd like to know, how do you see the role of the pact for advancing the youth affairs at the UN level and also at the international level? On one hand, do you feel like empowered and reinforced your mandate that with this new tool? And secondly, and how do you think that we should put them into actions?
So one general comment. So the Pact for the Future transcends the UN Youth Office. I think that the pact includes strong commitments and advancements in how young people should be including when we are looking at the peace and security agenda. It includes commitments from governments in advancing at the national level the implementation of meaningful participation platforms. So we need to put an emphasis in education. We need to put an emphasis in preparing and giving opportunities to young people when it's about skills and employment issues. We need to invest in health platforms in an holistic way, including, of course, biological issues, sexual and reproductive health, access to and to prevent infectious diseases. But at the same time, we need to put on the table the importance also of mental health and well-being for this current young generation, That's a political commitment, Of course, there's a lot of challenges to put this into action, And that's what young people brought into the table during the Youth Action Day, They were here to say, we want to be part of this, we want to support, and we want these commitments to be action, But the only way of doing this change in an impactful way is structurally, And it's also about the organization internally, We really believe, and I really believe that also this change will come if more young people are part of the organization, And I have the responsibility to be the youngest senior appointment in 8 years in the UN, But my reflection is okay that we needed to wait 8 years to have someone under 40, I think, or I'm 33, but under 40, I think, at the senior level position in this organization. And I always joke about this with my team, and I hope I'm not the last one. And I hope I'm not the only one at the same time, because really young people have a lot to bring into this platform, and not only to lead a youth office, young people can be part of different levels at different leadership positions.
Exactly as you said. And probably you also know that this year's Young Professional Program has just closed the registration. There are a lot of actually young people both in China or the rest of the world who wants to join the UN and to contribute their own part. What would be the message that you want to deliver to them?
And there are many barriers that are really not allowing young people to be part, And yes, we have the YPP program, the Young Professionals Program, which is a specific initiative trying to bring young talent into the organization, mostly from underrepresented countries, But then we have other challenges, For example, in the UN, when we look at the Secretariat of the UN, in 8 years, so we have been implementing different initiatives for internships, for example. So young talent to come into the organization and to get something from their experience, but also they are bringing a lot. And we are still not paying interns in this organization, And that needs to change, And this is one of our biggest battles as an office, And we know that we are not alone on this battle, We are working very closely and with a lot of commitment with the Department of Management, with the Department of Operations, so different parts of the UN that have to do on human resources policies. And hopefully we will make a change in the upcoming months, Because if we really want to be credible to young people, we need to make those changes also that make us credible.
Thank you so much, Felipe, for sharing, firstly, your personal experience, your personal story, and also your very, very deep insights into the youth affairs, reflecting, of course, the realities of the world. And we wish you a success, you and your office. And also, I'd like to borrow one very popular saying on the Chinese internet. It's called 归来人少年, which means like even with a growing age, you can still stay true to yourself with a forever young heart and soul.
Thank you. And maybe one final comment, because sometimes when we're speaking about these issues, people could think that we are putting this like one generation against another one, but that's not what we are trying to do. I think that in our DNA as an office, we have intergenerational solidarity as our guiding value, but we really want that this institution continues to move on this direction of bringing more young voices into the table, because we need them and because they're going to be the catalyzer in really putting this organization where it is, like as a leading organization in global issues and the SDGs back on track, because we need it, the world needs more than ever the UN. And for that to happen, we need young people to be in our platforms.
Thank you so much. I think that's a very powerful and appealing message to all the young people out there. And thank you for getting across this message through our show.
Thank you very much.
同样也感谢大家的收看。那这里要预告一下，我们下期侃侃联合国呢有一个特别的企划，希望大家不要错过。再见。